Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are. I hope everyone is doing okay and having a good time and enjoying the Saturday. We have lots of interesting stuff to discuss today, and we hope that you would enjoy this behavioral track which we have started. We are on week 11. We have one more week to go, which is week 12, which will be next week, and we will be discussing lots of interesting stuff in week 2 too also. So I hope everyone is having a good time, and I really appreciate your support for BESA program. We won't be able to do this without you, so thanks for that. And today we have lots of interesting guest speakers with me, and I'll quickly add them to the screen, and then I'll first explain that what we are going to discuss today, and then I'll introduce each of them to you. So we would get started by talking around three. We will talk about three speakers. So first we would have Neeraja Ganesh, who would talk about the personal brand building. James would take a lecture on learning by teaching, and then we would have Victory with us, who is a solution architect coming from AWS Restart program. So she would be also joining, and we'll talk about how to move forward in career journey, how she started, what obstacles she faced. So lots of interesting stuff, and you could see that these are coming from different plethoras or different stream of the life. So really interesting to have such a bright audience here and such a bright speakers to listen from them. So keep your questions coming. We would try to ensure that most of the questions get answered. And let me now add uh, Neerja ma'am to the stream. Good good afternoon, Neerja ma'am.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon.
And you are based in Bangalore, I guess, so right?
That's right. Yes.
Nice. How is the weather out there as of now? Means Bangalore is known to be have good weather, isn't it?
That's right. Yeah. But it is hot. And while I was, also telling Ashish that we realize that we have good weather when we go somewhere else outside of Bangalore. Otherwise, we complain. But it's all right. I think it is hot now.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
very quickly, I think it will start raining to bring down the temperature. So, yeah.
That's good. Yeah, I remember the days like whenever the temperature would go around 24, 25, it would rain in Bangalore. So that was like quite soothing. So I was really happy when I moved to Bangalore last a few years back. Yeah. But
Sure.
yeah, small world, I would say. So happy to have you here. And
Thank
thanks for your time. I appreciate you have like odd time zone Saturday and still coming with us. So thank you for that. Now I'll quickly like to introduce you, and then obviously I'll let you speak about yourself. That would be much better. But let me quickly talk about who is Neerja Ganesh. So Neerja ma'am would be helping us today with the personal brand building. So brand is a really important aspect of whatever you do in your uh, professional journey. So she would talk to us about how to build your brand, and she has been like a phenomenal speaker in different programs which are like uh, she has spoken for different AWS program. Plus, she is Aspire for her. She is inside that program too. So probably she will talk a little bit more on that, how those programs run and all these things. So welcome, ma'am, and I'll hand it over to you now. Just introduce yourself, and we will get started.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you, Ashish. Yes, in Bangalore, one of the things that always happens is you'll find a software engineer. So I also started my career in the IT field and stayed on in it for 25 years. I was largely working in the space of banking, banking domain, and IT for banking. So I quit from the corporate world in 2017. I was working at Capgemini then. I used to head the delivery for one of their clients, banking clients, and then I decided I would like to pursue my passion. A few interests that I had. One is, of course, in the space of women and looking at women, helping them in terms of their careers and getting them to aspire and also realize their potential and reach their potential. So I did that. I also thought I must interact with the youth of our country. So I went and worked in a college so that we could actually build or rather bridge the industry academia gap. I'm sure some
Mm-hmm.
of the reasons for you to start these initiatives is because there is a gap, right? What does the industry want? There is obviously a lot of education out there, formal, informal. One can always learn through the n number of platforms that are available, but still there is a gap, right? That is not exactly
Yeah.
what the industry wants. So the role that I played in a national college here in Bangalore was to bridge the gap. So I used to get industry experts like you to review our curriculum or to add on to our curriculum and see how we could enhance the education. And of course, I've remained in touch with the space of women. I do consult at Aspire for Her, which is a 3-year-old platform now. We have plenty of communities of girls and women, including Women on a Career Break. And we're glad to have support from organizations like AWS to help these women restart their careers. I freelance and I do a lot of leadership development programs. Again, it happens to be a lot of the space of women. And yes, I get invited to do a lot of these talks. And
Nice.
I enjoy them because I realize that the impact that one can create with this is
Mm-hmm.
humongous. It's beyond sitting in an MBA class or reading a book or something like that. Even one line that you might catch from the speaker
Exactly.
is really impactful. It was one such conference, and me sitting in a conference and listening to one of the speakers, which actually changed my mindset. And that's when I shifted out from corporate to do the things that I am doing. So I think it's beautiful that we have such opportunities. And yeah, that's
That's
some
so
of the things
interesting
that I
to
do.
hear. Yeah, and we have like live example within our BESA group. So Parna, she was with you. Me, she got inspired by you. She was in Aspire for her program, and now she is working for AWS. So yeah, what a career journey! And thanks for like this. Because of her, we were able to connect with you. Otherwise, we would not have connected. But yeah, that's good to hear. So I want to focus on like what you want to talk about brand, and obviously brand is something which is very very important for I think. So how we define things like what is personal branding? Is it just posting messages on LinkedIn, or is it something else?
Sure. That's that's good. That's a good question. And if that's one of the myths that we have to bust, I for sure will bust it. So let's start. If some of you who are attending this event now, if you saw my social media post yesterday about this
Hmm.
event, I'd asked, how do you introduce yourselves, right? I mean, that's the
Exactly.
first thing all of us have to do. I also introduce myself here. Now, the professional introduction would go as Neeraja Ganesh, Head Education Initiatives, Aspire for Her, right? I mean, that's what we usually do.
Hmm.
Um, now, I do that because it is expected that the name that we have is followed by the designation and name of the organization that you work at. So I consider Aspire for Her, and that's the role that I have. Now, in a personal space, it would be Neerja Ganesh. And depending on the circle where you are, if
Hmm.
you are at your husband's family side, then you may say, okay, I'll say wife of T.N. Ganesh, right? If at my daughter's school or college circle, where of course I'm no longer expected to be, my daughter is 21, it says just keep away, all right. So I
Yeah.
would probably say I am Sneha's mother. What happens when I move out of this organization? Like I moved out of Capgemini and I moved out without a job. Okay.
Hmm.
Now, how do I introduce myself? As long as you are in a job, there is another designation that catches up
You have
another
it.
organization. So the minute you're out of a job and you don't have something which is employable, you'll say Neerja Ganesh unemployed. I mean, doesn't kind of
It doesn't
go with
sense.
it,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So when Neeraja Ganesh, just the name, and I'm taking an example, and we could have so many such examples, brings certain perceptions, perspectives, some recall that you have the minute you hear of a name. And even when you're there or not there during the conversation, the minute you take a name and there is a recall, that's the personal brand.
Yeah.
Um, and all of us need to work to get there. And I also want to start by saying that we all have a brand, whether we like it or not. It's not that,
Hmm.
okay, I don't have one and I have to start building. All of us
Yeah.
have a brand. Today, we have a particular brand. Now, whether this is something that you wanted or not is something that you have to reflect on. whether you created it intentionally or not, right? So, like AWS is a brand, VMware as a brand, Google as a brand, each of the individuals has a brand. Indra Nooyi, as an example, I would like to take, right?
Yeah.
So, of course, she was the ex CEO of PepsiCo. That is something that you'll remember about her. She's written a book, My Life in Full. But I think one of the brand recalls that we have about her is that of an Indian woman who came from a middle class family and she rose up to be a global leader. And why is that a brand beyond her CEO? I mean, we don't talk so much about her being a CEO, but so many of her stories of how she reached
Hmm.
there. You know, she has done so many interviews where she speaks about a mother's guilt and how did she manage her two children as, she was growing up the career ladder. And all those stories are out there in the media. And hence, that is a particular brand that comes with her. So, social media helps kind of accentuate your brand, but it is not, what is creating your brand. You create your brand, and a brand is nothing without a story. So
Hmm.
what is our story? How does it support our growth? That is what one needs to, kind of reflect on. As I said, posting on social media only enhances it, but that's not how brands get created. What you do, how does it make you stand out? Because each of us is doing something similar to the other, right? So Neeraja is
Exactly.
a speaker and there are tons of speakers. So how do I do something which is different to so many others? So your USP, that we say, unique selling proposition, and not only differentiate, but does it make you memorable, which is more important, right? It's
Hmm.
not about you talking about yourselves, it is about everyone else talking about you. So why did Parna invite me to this today? There are a plethora of people who have a brand, who talk about personal branding, who do workshops about personal branding, but for some reason she chose me, and then she chose this topic because I do talk on many many topics also.
I get your point.
That's
Yeah.
the connect, right? I will also give one more story before we move on. So a couple of years ago, someone invited me to a diversity and inclusion, round table. I had to moderate this round table. So this organization was helping another technology organization set up their India arm, so a global organization. And the CIO and the head of technology India, they wanted to understand how diversity and inclusion is planted and grown in Indian organizations. So this company, which was helping them set up, they kind of convened this round table, and they invited a lot of other heads of technologies, diversity inclusion leaders, a lot of platforms, say like an example is Aspire for Her, which look at diversity and inclusion. And then they called me and they said, would I moderate this? I said,
Hmm.
yeah, why not? Something that I like. So when I walked into the room, the person who had invited me, the first thing she said was, when it comes to DNI, which is diversity and inclusion, the first person who comes to my mind is Neeraja Ganesh. So I just reached out to you. Now that is a brand. That is what you need to have for yourselves in terms of the recall value. It is not about the designation. I happen to run the education initiatives at Aspire for her, but the brand that probably I have is of being a diversity and inclusion evangelist. So nobody calls me a diversity and inclusion expert. They call me as someone who champions diversity and inclusion. I'm
Hmm.
known for my networking, right? So these are some of the aspects that are the recall value, and that is your personal brand. So I did struggle a bit. It just didn't happen overnight. When I quit from Capgemini, I struggled to introduce myself. I said, to some people, I said I'm in between jobs. To some people, I said I'm on a break. For some people, I said I'm thinking of what I really want to do, etc. But today, when people invite me for talks, they ask me, okay, what is the designation that we can put? And I say, put whatever you feel like, because it is Nirja Ganesh. Designations don't define me. So people put whatever they feel like, right? Like here we had TEDx speaker, leadership trainer, networking
Hmm.
coach, DNI champion. So that is the personal brand. Social media has just got an element to enhance it, but otherwise it's you the person and the story.
Makes sense. Yeah, completely makes sense. I agree on that. So yeah, something which you could relate to whenever I speak about someone, like when I talk about, let's say, film star, I probably
Yes,
recall for a few seconds in my mind, like, hey, how I know this person or where I've seen this person. So I
so
agree on that
that's
completely.
right.
Now I want to move to next question. Like, When we talk about brand building, is it only for job seekers, or let's say I'm not looking for a job, then why I should worry about my brand building? Means I'm settled. I don't want to move forward. So why I need that?
Sure, sure. A little bit of, I think, my previous answer would have kind of given some
Yeah.
insights into this, but let me tell you, everyone needs to have a brand. Let's start there. It's not about seekers, homemakers, I'm comfortable, I've reached there, none of that. Everyone needs to have a brand and needs to continually focus on it and enhance it. Um, so you gave a great example. Say Amitabh Bachchan as a brand, right? Um, I think beyond just being an actor, there are many facets of Mr. Amitabh Bachchan that we are going to recollect. Or Apple. Uh, it is Steve Jobs, right, that you probably remember
Mhm.
before you look
Exactly.
at the brand of Apple. So I think it is that brand which will get you plenty of airtime. It's the limelight that you have on yourselves when you walk into a room, be it a social circle, professional circle, or a community. So again, I want to give you some. So I'm a storyteller, so you will hear a lot of
Yeah,
stories.
we like to hear stories.
Today, my daughter, she's well known because of the work that she does. So she's been working at Aspire for her for 3 years, and she does a lot of public speaking and many other things. So today, she is well known, and she also uses social media to enhance that. But 5 years ago, when we were looking for colleges for her to get into PUC, the 11th standard, there was this college that we had gone to submit the application. So we had to give the marks card, the 10th standard marks card in one counter. And then we had to stand in this queue to meet the president and the principal of the college. It was a long queue. So we stood in the queue for about 30 minutes and then we were told that it is lunchtime. So the president and the principal, they will have their lunch, which will take another 30 minutes. So we have to wait. So the queue had to wait. So my daughter and I decided that we will go out. There is another college that we wanted to also submit the application, which was just next to this. So we
Mhm.
moved out of the queue and we thought we'll go there and come back. I know that we will lose our spot if we get out of the queue,
Yeah.
but we were okay. I mean, at least some work we'll get done. As we stepped out, the faculty member who was collecting the marks card, right, where my daughter had submitted her marks card, she came out and asked us what happened. Now, we could not tell her that we are going to another college. So we
Yeah.
told her that we are also going to have lunch. Now, she sensed something. So she asked us to wait for a few minutes. So she went from the back side. So that room where the president principal was sitting had also a backdoor entry. So she went from there. She spoke to them and she came out after a bit and she told us that the president is waiting to meet us immediately. Now, the entire long queue kept looking as my daughter just walked into the room. Okay. And then of course in the room, more than what the president and principal could ask my daughter asked tons of questions about the college, what is available. And because we had not heard of this college as much, and so what the president did was, the same faculty member, he asked that lady to take my daughter on a college tour. She took her to the lab, the classrooms, the seminar halls, everything, and then we went back into the room, and the
Mhm.
president asked her, would you like to join our college? So she said yes, and all the formalities were over. Now, why did this happen? In a minute of her submitting her marks, she had built a brand image for herself that she's a
I
good
get your
student,
point.
because academically she had got very very good marks, and the faculty member did not want to lose such a student. Similarly, the president and the principal did not want to, so they didn't bother about their lunch. And in spite of this long queue, people are waiting in front of us for hours. She kind of got in. Okay, so a brand helps. What is that brand is what one needs to focus on. And how do you build that is a different question that we'll come to. But that extra attention that she got, which was
Mhm.
send her, who will ask the
Yeah.
faculty member to take her on a tour of the college.
Tour of the
They
college.
really want to keep the student, not want her to go anywhere. So they're giving her a tour of the college, asking her, are you liking the college? In fact, they had just then started a uniform system also. Till then, their college did not have uniforms for 11th and 12th. And the
Mhm.
president asked, do you like that uniform?
Oh,
you
okay.
know So a brand helps everyone, everywhere. And even at times when you don't even realize, like here. So it's important for all of us to focus on what brand is being shown, right? There is already a brand about you. So is that what you want people to think about you? And then you should keep enhancing it.
Makes sense. Completely makes sense. So now this leads me to the so and you may not know that you are building a brand, but it just happens. It
Right.
happens organically, I would say. But can we make some conscious efforts to build our brand? Which leads to me in my next question: how to build your personal brand? Because obviously, I don't want to be known as someone which I'm not, because sometimes it just happens, right?
Correct, correct. So true, right? So I think the first step, of course, is to reflect and introspect what we want our brand has to be. That's where we need to start, because not everyone will, have something immediately to say. So, as an example, why do you do this, Ashish? I mean, is there some reason? Because you have a day job and you have plenty of other things. But why would you be doing this, if I may ask, as a quick
Yeah,
thing?
means I feel like the same thing, like there is a lot of knowledge gap between what people learn in academics and what is required in the field. And sometimes the guidance is so much that it confuses people. So we thought like we are first hand doing the job, and why not share that knowledge and make more people be successful in their life, because somebody somewhere helped us also in growing. So we are trying to reflect on that, or like trying to giving back to society. So that's the main idea.
Right. Now, you could have done 100 other things
Exactly.
with the time that you have, right? You could have looked at the environment, you could have looked at something else, but you chose this. So I'm sure there must have been some reflection. Some things come very immediately because you're looking at a problem and you want to solve it. It might be very immediate, but for some of us, we reflect on how do I want to use my time, and then I decide that, okay, let me focus on this, right? So that introspection is what I'm asking people to do a little bit, to say, okay, what is it that I want to be known as, beyond the designation that I carry, or even after I decide to leave the career that I have chosen today, what would I like to continue doing, and hence that brand. And of course, a large part of it comes from your online presence, but we will talk about how do you build it both offline and online.
Hmm.
The first thing that people can do as soon as they're done with this session is Google your name. It will come up with something. Today, there is an online
Yeah.
presence for all of us, right?
Anyone, if you
Google
like
your
it or
name.
not, it is there.
Yeah, some things will come up. Now you see, what is it talking about you? What is the story that it is conveying when you Google your name? So when I Google my name, the first thing that is coming up is my LinkedIn profile. And because I use it very heavily, I do a lot of writing on LinkedIn. Then some of my images come up, and then some videos come up, including my TEDx talk. Then some of my writings come up. So when everyone, and this is just the first page of the Google search. Now, when you look at this, those who don't know me will make a story out of it. Okay, looks like she's a speaker,
Hmm.
and then when you read, a lot of her talks are in the space of women leadership, right? So they kind of connect it and say, yeah, she seems to be a speaker who is in the space of women leadership. Now, is that a brand that I want? I will have to kind of answer that for myself. Have I consciously built it, or it just got built? So I'll give you a
Hmm.
story here also. When of course, after my corporate stint, I went and headed the jobs for her foundation. Okay, it's a like an Aspire for her. There's a another, and there are plenty of platforms today for women. So I was heading the jobs for her foundation, and then after 18 months, I kind of moved out from there, and I thought I will start some of my own leadership development programs. So I actually partnered with someone else who was already in that space, and we decided to do a set of webinars. And now this is pre-COVID, so it
Hmm.
was a little new. COVID, we know, we had death
Yeah.
by webinars, but this was pre-COVID. So we launched a webinar on networking, because that was my sweet spot. We did some promotions, etc., and we had about 96 registrations for that. But all of them were women. Not a single man registered for it. So I went back and looked at the posters to see, did I say only for women or exclusively, or did I say networking for women or something? None of that. It just say
Hmm.
networking. Neeraja Ganesh is the speaker, and that's about it. And the beauty was that the partner, he was a male, he had also promoted it on his channels, which had a mixed crowd,
Yeah.
but only 96 women registered. And then it struck me that because of my previous association with Jobs for Her, where
Hmm.
everything that I did was for women,
For women.
any
Yeah.
post that I put out was, if you're a woman, come join this webinar, join this program, women, women, women. They just assumed, even
Yeah,
though
it
it
is for
was not
women. Yeah.
there. that this is also for women, and that's how your brand gets built. Some of it is, without you knowing also. Now, have I tried to correct it? I tried to, by saying that, hey, I'm happy to talk to men also, but men don't talk to me. Thank you for this, opportunity. But usually they, kind of just make me come into women's programs and have a chat with them. So, a few things that you must do when it comes to building a personal brand: be consistent with your messaging. So I'm
Mhm.
happy. I mean, it was really a passion that I had to help women. So it's okay, right? If that is the branding that's gotten built for me, it's okay for me. But you have to be consistent with it. What do I mean by that? Because now I am in the space of women. What is the space? It's about women and careers. You can have many things, right? I have chosen to be in the space of women and careers. Now, there was a startup which is in the women's health space. So they came and they asked me whether I would do some, talks for them on their platform, etc., etc. And I thought about it and said, of course I can speak. I'm a woman, and of course, at the age that I am, I can definitely, talk about women and health. But I thought it just kind of, people will get confused. Now she's talking about women and careers. Now she's talking about women and health, and then tomorrow she'll talk about women and something else. There's a lot of
Yeah,
confusion.
I
And
agree.
in my own brand, people will not have one recall value. So be consistent. I'm not saying that you should only talk about one thing or do one thing. You could have two, three things, not, but be consistent with those three things. Don't
Mm.
keep bringing in new things and confuse your audiences. You have to build it both offline and online. And the third thing is, it takes time. It is an investment for people to start remembering and recalling you with that brand. It is an investment. So quickly, what do you do offline? I have this mantra, I kind of say every interaction is an opportunity for you. So you are at an event, you have gone to a social, setup. Like the other day, somebody had hosted a party and I was over there and they introduced me. And there was this person who was very, very curious about what I do. So it was an opportunity for me to talk about some of
Yeah,
my
exactly.
work. And it continued, now it will stay in his head, and, the brand remains. So show your expertise. Let people find out about your brand related successes through those interactions. Make yourselves easy to contact. So, yes, they heard me. Now,
Mhm.
if they want to reach out to me, how? So, yes, business cards are away, or LinkedIn profiles are away, WhatsApp numbers. That, so ensure that you're easily contactable, so that tomorrow when an opportunity comes and say, I think Neeraja can be
Yeah, I
contacted for
know.
this, they
Mm.
don't have to kind of find out now where to get Neeraja, right? And hence you have to participate in as many events and activities where maybe you'll get introduced. You may not be a speaker, but you could volunteer to say, okay, I want to be the MC, or something. So there will be an opportunity for you to get introduced,
Interactions.
and
Yeah.
then you continue with the role that you have. um, be present at as many networking events that you can, be organized networking events. So all of that is offline, and of course, now we do the same things online also, but a little bit extra that you do online is about usage of online platforms, social media, blog sites, etc. um, be a bit careful with online. While it's a little easier, it is also dangerous, because everything that you do online leaves a trail. Okay, and then it is very difficult to erase that trail.
Erase
So as
it.
I said,
Yeah,
the Google
it
search
will
will
stay
bring
there.
out, yeah, a
Yeah.
lot of things. So be very, very conscious about what you do online. So if you want to choose LinkedIn as your professional social media, and you want to keep your personal life aside, you can choose another social media for personal and not mix up both. But
Don't
remember
mix it.
that that will also come up. Your personal bit will
Yeah.
also come up in the search. So how much you put out there from your personal side, you have to be careful, because you need to decide. If I'm on a vacation also, people want to know, and what I wear, at home also people want to know, what I eat people want to know. You decide. There is no do's and don'ts there, but it is about you in terms of how much you want people to know. So there was a very interesting way Karthik Srinivasan had put this. Karthik Srinivasan is a brand by himself, and he writes a lot on, he's got a website, and he writes a lot about advertising, PR, etc. And he does workshops on personal branding. So he had explained it like this: if you have a house with 100 windows,
Hmm.
you close all the 100 windows. Nothing is visible to anyone what is happening inside the house. You open all 100 windows, everything is visible. But if you choose to open only five windows, and which are those five windows? On which side are you opening the five windows?
Hmm.
That's what is known to the world. So choose that. Those three, four aspects of you which you would like others to know, and only open that. Now don't keep, okay, today these five windows, another day, another those five windows. That kind of,
Doesn't
messes
help. Yeah.
right? And it is important to promote yourself, and that is where social media comes to continuously enhance your brand. So you cannot be in the basement playing guitar for 30 years thinking someone will find you. You have to make your
Yeah.
presence out there. Success isn't showing up. Just like if we want to be fit, you got to show up to the gym, you got to show up, on your exercises, etc. Similarly, you have to show up on your social media, on your blog sites, write on guest blog sites or LinkedIn or whatever else, wherever else you feel. Here Besa is an opportunity and a platform where you could, do some things. So I think that's some of the ways you can build your brand.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Now, when it comes to like some things like any common mistakes to avoid, because yeah, I mean, it's easy to make mistake and it stays on internet as you said. Like so, you are getting recorded, you are on YouTube on a funny video, and you would stay there. Nobody's going to remove you. So how
Yeah.
to avoid common mistakes in that case?
Um, so again, what is a mistake? I mean, I may do something and you may feel, oh my god, what is that? I would never try it, right? So for me it might have been okay, for you it's not okay. So that way I think it is very personal, so I can't
Hmm.
really say that, see, he or she did this and that was a mistake. But
Okay.
a few things that you may want to kind of reflect on is, do you want to be known as controversial, as an example?
Hmm.
So the way you write, the way you speak, and the platforms that you appear on, if they are building a brand presence of being controversial, and if you're wanting to be controversial, great,
Yeah,
but
means that's
without
your
your
choice.
knowledge. So I'm happy to be on Besa, but if there's another platform which I know maybe is controversial, and I choose not to be around controversial platforms, then I avoid that, right? Do you want to be known as highly opinionated,
Hmm.
or you kind of want to, your language is such that you want to present your knowledge, or you want to kind of say, no, this is the way it is? So that's the highly opinionated part of it, right? So your goal, what is your goal eventually with the brand that you establish, will help you in terms of doing certain things, doing where to do, how to do, how much to do. So the goal is very important. That's why that, introspection, and then from there the good and bad, the mistakes and the right and the wrong will come through.
Makes sense. Now, so you came to the point like, hey, I'm using some controversial programs, or maybe I am on those platforms. So obviously that sticks with me. So some situations like, or some examples you could share like, hey, this was a good brand or this could be a bad brand. Again, it is perception. I may consider that as good because maybe I follow that ideology, and others may think it is not good. So how you could differentiate, or if I'm in a mix, like should I use that or not, what kind of a checks I could do mentally that hey, I should not do this or I should do this.
A good starting point. So the way I started, right? So when I started, I'll be very honest. In 2016, I didn't even have a LinkedIn profile.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I've been in the IT industry for 24 years then, and I didn't have a LinkedIn profile because I was very anti all of this. So
Social
I had a
media, yeah.
Facebook profile because one of my friends really bothered me, and so I created one. But I kept it very close to my family and friends. In 2016, I was thinking of moving out of the company where I was. So somebody suggested you should be on LinkedIn. So I got onto LinkedIn, but again, I connected only with people with whom I had worked in the
Mm-hmm.
past. So again, it was a very small crowd. If someone sent me a link, like if you had sent me, I wouldn't have accepted it. But today I go all out and send requests, right? However, at this conference that I attended, which is where actually a conference changed my mindset. It was a conference for women on a career break. And there was one person, he said to the women who were trying to get jobs and she was finding it difficult, Said, why are you always looking at what you've done in the past? And then you took a break and now you want to restart in the same
Same
space.
field. Yeah.
Yeah. Because opportunities will be limited. And you may not have, kind of kept up your learning also in
Yeah.
that space.
It's fast changing industry.
Yeah. Instead of that, reflect on what your strengths are.
Hmm.
You may be a Java programmer, but your strengths are beyond just programming, right? What is your strength as a person? And where can those strengths be used? It could be used in different kinds of domains, may not even be IT somewhere else. So when I moved from IT into an NGO space, Jobs for a Foundation, a not-for-profit foundation, I was really wondering how I will run this because I have no experience of running not-for-profits.
Hmm.
But I was very good at stakeholder management because I was in the IT world managing projects and stakeholders. That helped me establish partnerships for my not for profit. I was good at communication, so I could build communities and do the social media, etc., etc. So my strengths helped me, right? So I decided that, I was thinking, why didn't I think of this? I was always thinking that if you're IT, you have to be forever IT. But this perspective, why is it that it didn't come to my head?
Hmm.
And then I realized that I was in a cocoon. I'm in an IT world. All conferences that I go to is IT slash banking because that's the domain I am in. Same set of people I meet, even those conferences,
Yeah.
same set of speakers, the same thought process. Now I've come to another conference and you've got people across the industry. So I thought, how do I get these different perspectives into myself? And I started following all the speakers who had come there on that day. And then of course I started building my connections on LinkedIn. And today, I think I don't do anything personal on Facebook also. It's always professional. That's a choice that I have made. And it has been a growth, like first nothing, then just follow people, then just kind of like people's posts, then start writing content. So you can also observe for a while. You can find out people who you are inspired by and what they do, and
Hmm.
then slowly start. Building content doesn't come easily for many people. So you may just start by putting out a comment on somebody's post. Even that is
Post.
good,
Yeah.
because that is also reflecting of some of your thought leadership.
Thought process.
And
Yeah.
then slowly over a period of time, when you have figured out this is the brand presence I want to have, this is the tone that I want to set, these are the platforms I would like to be associated with. So anything to do with women and students is where I am. You'll always find me, right? So that's a very conscious decision that I have made. And hence I will keep away from other platforms. So it comes over a period of time. Doesn't mean to say that somebody else who's doing completely opposite of what you're doing is wrong or it's bad branding.
Hmm.
As long as it helps your goal, and that is your goal. You
Your goal.
can't be an Neeraja Ganesh, you can't be an Ashish, you can't be a Karthik Srinivas. I can't start aping someone else to say, okay,
No
it'll
way.
never happen, right? It can't happen in careers also. You can look at someone as a role model. You can get inspired. You can pick up some
Hmm.
traits, but you are you. So build your own brand based on the goals that you have. It will work out good for you.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, I completely agree on that. So thank you. And I would like to take a question from audience now. That
Sure,
question is coming from Nivedita. I'll put it on screen. It says,
sure.
can we get an example on how to conquer a goal in order to achieve personal branding?
Nivedita, can you explain that a little more? I mean, when you say how to conquer a goal in order to achieve personal branding, so are you saying how do I establish a goal so that it comes up as your brand? I'm just assuming that that might be the question. How do I find my with what is that? Because I like 10 things. So that what is those two things that I want to kind of quickly. Okay, great. Okay, I got it right. Um,
S-
so it
Yeah.
is
So
definitely a
let's say
reflection,
yes.
definitely
Yeah.
your reflection. uh, and it is like I was holding another workshop just last week for these women leaders of an organization. And while there can be 100 things we can talk to anyone, right? I can talk about networking, I can talk about work life integration, I can talk about many many things so that they grow in their careers. The first session that I did was on finding your purpose. What is your why? So nobody can tell you what your purpose and your why is, right? You have to reflect on it. And it may, today where you are may not necessarily be your purpose and why at all. Because many of us just are not very intentional about where we are going. We just
Mm-hmm.
get into it because, yeah, college we have to study, these are the most interesting courses or the in demand courses, then we just get sucked in to through campus placement, and then there is a career path in the organization, and we are going, and never had the time to reflect, to say, okay, why am I doing what I'm doing? What is it that I really want to do? So that is something that needs deep reflection. One of the tools that I can tell you is go and Google for what is called as the wheel of life. Okay,
Wheel of life. Okay.
wheel of life. So you need wheels to run anything, a two-wheeler, four-wheeler, you need wheels,
Exactly.
and well-rounded wheels. Even if a slight puncture, it will not go well, right? So on a wheel of life, you can put as many spokes as you want. One is family, one is career, one is community, fitness, health, whatever, build it, right? Most important aspects of your life. And on a scale of 0 to 10, give a number to each of them. So on family, is it 5, 10, 8, 0? On, say your team leadership, if you are a team leader, where do you plot yourselves? On fitness, where do you plot yourselves? Okay. All of them will not be at the same number. Some will be good, some will be bad. So you'll have a very zigzag kind of a wheel. So with this wheel, you're not necessarily able to go ahead. It's really going
Yeah.
to stop, go, stop, go, stop, go. So then you can decide which of those aspects I want to move, and which of those are at a good position and I don't have to invest more time on. And then start working. That's one of the ways you can reflect on your purpose and your why, because you eventually want a very holistic life. Correct? We are good with our careers, money is coming in, good designations, people know us. We are good with our family because, okay, fine, we got married, we have kids and they're studying well. So we are not good with our community, as an example. And so Ashish decided that this is what I want to do, right? So maybe that's how the why comes. And then with that in mind, you start building your thought leadership. Start writing out on social media, start giving talks, do your blogs, find opportunities where you can speak about it. And that kind of keeps enhancing your brand.
Completely makes sense. So yeah, I get it. And the audience, James has put some links on the Wheel of Life, so check that too. So I'm just
Fantastic.
showing it here. So check that, and hopefully that would help. So yeah, as James has said, it's very important about why I am doing it. That is very very important aspect. Now
Absolutely.
maybe this one question Neerja ma'am
Sure.
reflects from Karthik said, what are challenges you faced as you built your personal brand? Any bad experience, rejection you faced in the journey?
So see, no, nobody's going to reject you. Okay, fine. Let me look at it this way. If you're saying that I've built a thought leadership on XYZ, right? And that should ideally lead you to, getting your next job, or people seeking you out as the, thought leader in that space. Because those are some of the things that do happen. How do you find candidates for your, vacant roles? There are plenty that will apply, but you also know that, most of them may not fit. They've just applied. So the best way to kind of get candidates is through referrals or through the recall that you have. Hey, I think I saw this person giving a lot of talks on this particular subject, so why don't I tap on that person and say, hey, are you ready for a job, right? So yeah, from that perspective, if you have built a brand in such a way that people are looking at you very very differently and not very friendly, then you can call it a rejection. But otherwise, if you've done it with a goal in mind, I don't think there is anything called as a rejection, because it was very, very scientific. This is what
Mhm.
I want to be known for. And hence, I'm going to do one, two, three things, which is that every week I'm going to, write a blog post or a social media post to talk about that. So in my case, if I'm really wanting to be known as the DNI, champion, then every week I will write my own content around diversity and inclusion. So that's one thing that I do in a month. The second month, second week, I will go and possibly do a talk. The third week, I may do a third thing that I decide to do. Right. So it's a very goal-driven approach. So over a period of time, as I said, it takes time. Now, Today, how many LinkedIn connections do I have? I'll just quickly look at it. It says 28,968. And 2016, I didn't even have a LinkedIn profile. Okay. Now, it has taken me that time, but I had a strategy around it.
Hmm.
First, I started following people who I used to meet at conferences. I was very scared to send connection requests. Then I said I will send connection requests by putting some meaningful thing in it. I'm looking for a job, so I
Details
want
on
to
that.
connect with you. Cannot be the thing, right?
No.
If you do that, then not everybody can kind of like that kind of a thing. Oh, you're very selfish. You've come to me for a selfish need, right? You may want to say, okay, fine, Neeraja, I heard you here, and it was very inspiring. If at all it was inspiring, and I would like to remain connected with you. And of course, I will also like it that, okay, you actually attended one of my sessions and hence you want to connect with me. uh, and then I started putting out content. And now, when people read my content, if I find some engagement on it, people comment, people like, then I feel that these are probably people who I want to keep in my network. Okay. So that's how you're building your network. So personal brand and network goes together, right? So there's never a bad experience. Of course, you may have a few people who land up in your network because of this, because you found this person having liked your post. You said, okay, I will connect with him or her, and then you find that this person is not professional. Those things can happen, but that will happen anywhere, right? It's not because you are on a building a personal brand journey. But if you are goal driven and you are very consistent, it doesn't mean every day you have to do, doesn't
I
mean every
agree.
day you have to write. But what is your consistency? If Wednesdays are the day you're going to write, you
Hmm.
will see after 3 months people are waiting for your Wednesday post.
Yeah, I get it. Yeah.
And if you miss that Wednesday post, people will say, hey, what happened?
What happened?
Had so
Yeah.
many. See, I'm not very consistent in terms of days of the week or what content I put out. I do put out very frequently, but I don't have a calendar.
Hmm.
But during some festive season, say Navaratri for 10 days, I'm very busy at home. I may not put out a content. I've had people messaging me and saying, hey, I hope everything is fine with you. And I say, why? Because I didn't see you on LinkedIn at
Yes.
all.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
You are
People
observing
people
this.
wait for it. I agree
Yeah,
on
so
that.
consistency is very important.
Consistency is the key. Nice, thank you. And we are nearing to the time, but I feel like it should never end. So I would take like one more question from audience,
Sure.
and this may be like I also wanted to ask that how do you improve public speaking and plan your speech according to audience? Today, you use very simple but impactful language. There were no complex phrases or idioms, but it was very easy to connect. Yeah, that is a common thing. Like when
Right.
people start public speaking, they want to use those heavy words or complicated sentences or complex formations. So yeah, it looks good, but then it somehow confuses people in understanding the basic concept or basic things you are trying to relate to.
Right, right. Very, very true. And thank you for that. So, I will tell you that I was a very meek, timid, shy girl who never spoke. And for the first 10 years of my career, I didn't even say hi to the person who was sitting next to me. I was that shy. Okay. And today, of course, I'm a public speaker. So the transformation has happened, and that's a story for another day. But when I started speaking, like public speaking, which was first, it was because I was head of jobs for her foundation. And in that role, you get invited to
You
speak.
heard, yeah.
They didn't call Neeraja, they called the head of jobs for her foundation. And when I went and started giving talks, I used to be, in the storytelling mode. I used to narrate my experiences. And when I narrate my experiences, it just connected with people. I think more than doing some research and picking up some slides, which is theory, when you talk about your own experiences about that theory, it connects better because people will always remember that story. We know that storytelling is the way to communicate
Yes, the way.
wherever, however, not only for public speaking. If you're a project manager, if you are an architect, when you want to connect with somebody else, you try to say, no, this is what this. You use all the technical jargon,
Hmm.
it will not cut it. You give a story from your past that when we did not use it like this, you know what happened? It created this huge problem for us. It'll just immediately connect, right? So when I started sharing my experiences, people started coming to me and they said, we have not heard anyone like you. And what it makes us feel is if you went through it and you could, kind of overcome, if I was
Overcome
talking
it.
about a challenge, we can also do it. So that was very powerful for me. And I said, just by sharing 5 minutes, so today for maybe 30, 40 minutes, I've shared some experiences. And if it could have an impact, I mean, I don't lose anything, right? And I would like to do more of this. So that's how my journey on, talking at different platforms started. My journey on writing also started, because how many platforms, and this was pre-COVID, so how many conferences can I physically go to?
Yeah.
So I said, okay, let me start writing, so that at least more people can read, and that's how I started building a LinkedIn profile. So to improve public speaking, the simple thing, and forget public speaking, general speaking, start to use stories. Instead of saying, I know this is I'm the expert here, and this is the way to do it, whether it is
Hmm.
at home, in your community, in your office. Try to bring some story of your past, which will aid that conversation that you're having.
Conversation. Yeah.
Yeah. If you want to kind of emphasize on a particular point, bring a story. Like, for example, I talk about intentional careers. I tell people, you have to be very intentional about what career choices you make and where you want to be in the next 5, 10 years. Big word, intentional career. Samajh mein nahi aaya. You don't know what it is. But if I say, see, you get out of the house in the morning and you say, okay, today I'm going to take the car and go on a drive. You don't know where you want to go, but you just want to spend the next couple of hours on the road driving the car and wherever it takes you. The minute, I mean, you've gone out, and after half an hour, there is a block on the road
Hmm.
that you are at. Now, what do? Since you didn't have any goal in mind, you may just come back home. Say,
Come back
okay,
home.
fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. But if you had a goal, you wanted to
Hmm.
reach a destination,
Reach
you're
a
not going to
place.
come back home.
No,
You're going to
you will
find
figure out.
Google Maps, this, that, or I'll wait here, but I have to reach there. That is intentional career. If you don't have a goal that in 5 years I want to be here and 10 years I want to be there, the minute something comes your way, you'll say, okay,
You get distracted.
yeah. So when I narrate this example and a story, now you understand intentional careers
Easy to
better.
connect. Easy to
Yeah.
connect.
So that's speaking, and then public speaking. Make it storytelling, and you'll be successful.
Nice, interesting. I really like that way. Yeah, storytelling is a way to go. Yeah, means it feels like it's like kiddish approach, but I would say no, it is the best approach to
Right.
explain anything, and that sticks into your mind. It's not like, hey, I just heard a word, but you start narrating that story as soon as it comes to your mind. So
True.
really, really nice to that. So yeah, that is a great example. Yeah, thank you for that. So yeah, we really appreciate your time, Nija ma'am. It was really good experience, and we wish to talk to you maybe in some other sessions, maybe some other time. Yeah, but it was really, really good to have you here and speak up about how to build brand and how to go around some of the common challenges people face. And we really admire your time and passion, so thank you for that. And probably we would be still connecting on LinkedIn. We would be sharing these videos also. So good to have you here. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. And I wish everyone here all the very best. And I'm hoping to get some LinkedIn requests saying, Nirja, I heard you at
Yeah,
this session, and we can stay
exactly,
connected.
exactly. So build your brand, at least the first exercise get started with. So yeah,
Yes.
thank you so much.
Thank
Okay,
you.
good.
Bye.
Th- Thank you. Bye. Have a good one. And for participant, we will have a 5 minute break, and then we will have James coming up. So thank you. James would be here in a 5 minute. I'll put a timer so that you can all maybe fill up your coffee or top up your water bottle and be with us again in 5 minutes. Thank you so much, Neeraja. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
everyone, and I'll add James to the screen. James, good to have you back. It's been
Good
long, and
morning. Hello.
morning. We've been missing you a lot, and it's good to be with you again. Yeah,
Yeah,
thank you.
thanks. I'm hoping can you hear me and see me okay? Because my internet provider has decided to cut my internet speeds to very, very slow internet speeds. So I'm hoping this all goes well.
It,
So we'll
it
see.
it hopefully goes well. And now I'm seeing one change here. The bottles which you have on the shelf, they are going down. So I know what you're doing.
I forgot. I didn't even think of that actually. I should really keep them topped up, shouldn't I? So
Yeah,
people.
exactly. I mean, so why your supplies are lasting means it should be always filled up, isn't it? Good, thank you. So I'll add you to stream and I'll let you take over. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. Thanks, Ashish. Yeah, good morning, everyone. Good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Like I said, my internet speeds are a little bit all over the place at the minute. So I've got Twitch on my phone in front of me. So if the connection goes or you can't hear me, just drop a message in the chat and I'll try and figure something out. So today I'm going to talk to you briefly about a topic that's pretty close to my heart, and that is learning. You know, in our industry, things move so quickly, things are changing all the time, that learning is a really important skill. Now, this talk has teach in the title, right? Learning by teaching. What does that mean? Well, I promise you that by the end of this session, you'll understand how teaching the things you know can also help you learn. And to do that, we're going to understand more about what it means to be a solutions architect, what that means for your brand. Like, what an awesome session we've just had with Neeraja about brand, and then some practical tools that you can use to actually start to build your brand in the technical industry. So for anyone who's heard me speak about anything ever, I always like to start with why. I think it's really important to understand the why before you try and get into the what and the how. And as Neeraja was saying, you know, understanding the why of your brand is really important. Where do you want to go? Where do you want to see? How do you want to be seen in the world? Because if you're active on social media, you're active online, you're active in a community, you have a brand of some kind, whether conscious or unconscious. So we're going to go a little bit off topic briefly, and then we'll come back to the teaching part at the end, I promise. And I want to start with a quick story about the process I went through to start producing the content that I produce. So some of you may know, some of you might not, that I produce content on YouTube. So I wanted to start producing content and teaching people for years, but I was absolutely terrified of doing that because I was scared, right? I was scared of, is it going to be up to the standards, both my own standards? Am I good enough to be able to teach people? Do I have the knowledge to be able to teach people? That massive, massive imposter syndrome. And I'm sure some people listening, whether you're new to tech, whether you've been in tech for years, you probably have a similar feeling in some part of your career. Like, what do I have to teach? That is exactly what I was feeling. So I went through a process. I looked at what it actually means to be a solutions architect, how that aligns with my strengths. You know, Neeraja again talked about what are your strengths, and then use that to look at what the content was that I wanted to produce. So let's start by unpacking this a little bit. So solutions architect, what does that actually mean? What skills does a solutions architect need? Well, let's look at some definitions first. The solutions part is the means of solving a problem or dealing with a difficult situation. That's a solution. The architect, there's two definitions for architect. If you Google this, one being the more traditional architect, someone who's designing buildings to plan and supervise their construction. And the other definition being our industry, someone who designs hardware, software, applications, etc. Now, I think in our industry, this term is actually a little bit misleading. And let me explain why. So if we think about architects in the construction world, the architect is someone who designs the buildings, right? They plan and they supervise. So you've got the architect here designing and planning and supervising. Now, if this was the construction industry, you'd also have probably an engineer of some kind. The architect might create a design, and then the engineer might understand the structural load, how things can fit together, how much weight a certain thing can hold. And then you'd also have someone else, you'd have the builders. You'd have the people actually on the ground, actually building these things and putting these things together. So I went through this process and I was thinking about this, and I was like, well, actually, that doesn't really work in the tech industry, because to be a good architect in the tech industry, you kind of need to be all of them things. You kind of need to be a solutions architect, engineer, builder. And that is a bit of a mouthful to put on a job title, right? But when I was going through this process and I was thinking about what is the content that I want to produce, I'm interested in architecture and solutions architecture, but is it enough just to be talking about design? We need to be able to build things. We need to understand the load of things. Actually, the definition I prefer is just problem solver. That's all we are. We're problem solvers. And then if you put that lens on the content, the building a brand side of things, okay, what skills do you have that can help other people solve problems? I'm a massive believer that all of us have something that someone else can learn from. All of us can help someone else solve a problem, technical or otherwise. So I landed on this definition. I was like, okay, so we're problem solvers, right? That's what we are in our industry. So what content can I look at to help people solve problems? And while I was doing that, I stumbled across one of the most fantastic YouTube videos I've ever seen about our industry. And it's this YouTube video, and I'll pop this link in the Twitch chat once I'm done talking. It's a talk from Gregor Hoppe, who works at AWS. And it's a talk about what he calls the architect's elevator. And he's actually wrote a book about this, as Gregor. It's a really awesome book. It's behind me somewhere next to the alcohol. Sheesh. And what Gregor talks about in the architect's elevator is the different levels that a solutions architect or any kind of architect needs to operate at. So if you imagine the typical skyscraper, the typical hierarchical structure in a business, you've got the CTO sat somewhere up near the top of this building, and then you've got the intern engineer probably sat somewhere much lower down. Now, as an architect, you need to be able to ride this elevator up and down. It's not enough to just be able to think at the high level and not be able to build, and similarly just being able to build and not think at the high level. They're very different skills. Neeraja mentioned again about being a Java developer, but what are your other strengths and how can they be applied? The Java developer is a really useful skill at the kind of building level of architecture. But actually, maybe you're listening to this and you're really excellent at talking to people, dealing with people. Okay, well, then you can start to ride that elevator up and down. And some architects will be better at one end of the spectrum than the other. But what would you like to be known for? What is it about your brand or the way you like to be seen? How would you want to be known? I very consciously at this point decided that I want to be more towards the technical level. How can I help people solve technical problems? Like the business strategy stuff is interesting, but it's the technical stuff I find really, really interesting. So then I thought, okay, so we've got this elevator, we're riding the elevator up and down. I've decided I want to focus more at the technical level, and I'm a problem solver. The content I want to produce is solving problems. So what problems do people need to solve in our industry? What technical problems? And the simple place I ended up was here. We're all familiar with these things, I'm sure by now. We had awesome guests on last week talking about certifications, and we're all familiar with them. And certifications are great. They give you practical advice about specific AWS services, and getting all of the certs it's an aspirational goal. If you like taking exams, things like these are really great for CVs and resumes and starting to build that brand of having a certain level of knowledge. But I actually think there's a slight problem with this line of thinking, at least in my opinion, and with certifications in general, because certifications teach you very specific things about very specific AWS services. And a lot of these services are sat around in a vacuum. That you're taught about EC2, and then you're taught about developer, and then you're taught about DynamoDB and all of these things. But actually, the problems we solve as technologists span all these different spectrums. These are really, really hard, nuanced problems that are going to be specific to each customer that you might talk to. So understanding the theory of a specific AWS certification, I could produce content to teach people about AWS certifications, and part of me being involved in BISA and doing this awesome work is that exact reason, because certifications are great to demonstrate that knowledge. But actually, once you get into industry and start dealing with the specific nuanced problems of each individual customer, you quickly realize that the technical stuff is kind of easy. It's this that is the problem. It's almost always a people problem. Understanding the different requirements people have, asking the right questions, solving the problems before you even get into the implementation details. And then once you get into the implementation details, you might need to teach somebody how to build it. As an architect, you may not be building every solution yourself. So what we're doing as architects, we're taking complex things and we're making them simple, both business requirements and technical requirements. That's what we're doing. So coming back around to that AWS certifications, I could pass an AWS certification, I could read books, I could, remember what the right answer is to each individual question. But until you've built a Lambda function that reads from S3 and then gets stuck in an infinite loop because you're right back to the S3 bucket and that triggers your Lambda function again. And yes, I've done that and it cost a reasonable amount of money until I noticed. Until you've actually been hands-on and actually built things, it's really difficult to give that really accurate knowledge that meets a specific customer's problem. There's this term in the industry called the ivory tower architect. And the ivory tower architect is someone who just sits, designs systems, mandates that teams use certain products and certain services, but they aren't actually on the ground building software. They aren't in the engine room, as Gregor would say, in the architect's elevator. And the best architects I've worked with are the ones who can take these high-level business requirements and follow them right through to writing individual lines of code. Now, that was a lot of theory, and now you're all sat there thinking, this was supposed to be about teaching and learning. What the heck is James talking about? Well, what I've tried to give there is just an overview of how I landed on the kind of content I produce. I work through what I think some of the challenges are in the industry, why I think they're challenging, and ended up with the content I try and produce that is very technical focused, and to make what are typically complex technical problems, to try and make them simpler. And I'll get into some ways I try and do that. But how does this relate to teaching, right? How does learning relate to teaching? Well, there's a really famous physicist called Richard Feynman, and he has some brilliant theories on learning. One of his most famous quotes, in fact, is, if you want to master something, teach it. I'd really recommend following him on Twitter, actually, if you use Twitter, because he's put some really good stuff on there. But to teach, what Richard's saying here is to teach someone something else, maybe something really complex, in a simple way, that means that you yourself need to have a really deep understanding of how the thing works to be able to teach it, right? That's before people even start asking questions, just to be able to explain something simply. Like, it's quite difficult unless you know it in detail. And he actually has a technique for learning things as well. So you pick a topic that you might want to understand. Let's say that is advanced networking, because I know very little about networking. Let's say that's advanced networking. And I'll study it for a little bit. I'll do some initial research, and then I'll pretend to teach it. I might build a session that is something I might give at BISA. I might give on here. And then I'd teach it, and I'd look at where I started to stumble as I was trying to teach it. And then I'd go back where I got stuck, and I'd come back and I'd teach it again. I'd simplify. And we have the master of analogies here with us, luckily, try and use analogies to help explain some of these complex topics. So the thing here is, if you really want to understand something deeply, teaching it is a really fantastic way of doing that. And we're really lucky, I think, in our industry, because we've got lots of different ways of teaching. Teaching doesn't necessarily need to be, what we do at BISA, where we're stood talking to you all. There's lots of different ways that you can teach. So let's have a look at some practical things now that you can look at to help building your brand and teaching and improving your learning. And the first is one that I'm sure most of us are pretty familiar with now, and that is GitHub. GitHub is an excellent tool for improving your learning and teaching others. Learning in public is a really great skill, and that's for a few reasons, right? It demonstrates to potential employers that you're an active practitioner of the technology that you're talking about. Now, I'm not suggesting that having an active or inactive GitHub profile might stop you getting a job, but being active on GitHub is a really great thing to be able to show that, you're actually building these things, you're actually working, you're actually doing these things. And it really allows you to upskill and get into the engine room. If you're publishing things publicly, you're doing the work. And also a well-written README in a GitHub repository actually gets indexed by Google. So you can then actually potentially help somebody stuck with the same problem that you've solved in your GitHub repository. So if you have a quick look at my GitHub repository now, for example, so these are all the public repositories on my GitHub, and everything I do when I'm learning a new topic, I'll always do that publicly. So for example, over the last couple of months, I've been teaching myself the Rust programming language. So I've got a repository here, Rust on serverless, learning Rust in public. Now, the Rust code in this repository is probably not great, but having it out publicly and learning in public demonstrates that at least level of knowledge. I've got, I was working with App Runner, starting to use AWS App Runner all in public, modernizing .NET applications, just playing around with that, trying to build event-driven systems without any lines of code. Everything I do publicly. Learning, I don't know why I wanted to do this, but I did for a little while, tried to learn Kubernetes, so everything I try and do in public. And then in each of these repositories, I try and write content that will make this easy to understand if someone comes across this repository, easy for them to deploy it, but also think about that angle of, okay, someone's looking how to do translation with AWS serverless technologies. Maybe they end up on this GitHub repository. Maybe that's valuable to them. So GitHub is a really, really awesome way to do this. And when I was building out these Rust examples, I set myself the challenge to write some Rust code every single day for about 3 weeks. And some days that was like 15 minutes of writing code. And all of it every day was published to GitHub. And that massively helped my learning, because I was thinking about, okay, this is going to go public. I need to understand this well. I might potentially create some YouTube videos on this. And actually, that's what I ended up doing. I ended up creating some YouTube videos on the Rust content as well. And I wouldn't have been able to do that without going through the process and doing this learning with that lens of, I'm going to teach this at some point. So that's GitHub. That's one option. And that's a really easy way to get started teaching your content, teaching anything you learn without needing to write or get in front of a camera or things like that. But the next one is being recorded, video content. So like I said at the start, I produce videos on YouTube. I do things like BISA. And again, it's amazing to live in a time where it's so easy to produce content and publish it. To set up a YouTube account, start publishing content there is so easy. And I'll show you some tools in a second that I use to make it even easier. Now, since I started producing content on YouTube, I don't think I can even explain how much deeper my technical knowledge has got in certain areas, like the internals of how serverless technologies work, the .NET programming language, the Rust programming language, doing things with this lens of, I'm going to have to teach this to people, really, really helps drive home that focus on understanding and really, really understanding something well. And it doesn't need to be a long process. If video is something you're interested in, YouTube is something you're interested in. Like, I consciously produce videos that are typically between 10 and 15 minutes long because, frankly, I don't have a lot of spare time, and I respect that people watching are probably equally as busy and probably also have very little spare time. So do people want to sit down and watch a 1 hour, 10, 15, 20-minute long video? Probably not. And I'm also compressing that time frame, trying to work to 10-minute videos, again, really helps drive home that understanding, because then I need to understand the absolute necessary information needed to be able to teach this to somebody and get that across in a simple way. Like, I don't have time in 10 minutes to explain the deep technical internals of how Lambda works, but what is the absolute necessary information needed to understand how Lambda works? So producing videos, some technical tools for producing videos. So producing videos is, I can't believe I put it off for so long because the process is so easy, and I am not a creative person at all. Like, my brother's a graphic designer and he laughs at how bad I am at like creative graphics design, video editing type things. I'm really, really bad at it. But it's a super easy process. So one of the tools I use is called OBS Studio. OBS Studio is super easy to use. It's completely free, and you download it, you install it, you set up your devices. So you see here, I've got video capture and display capture. So I'm capturing both the display and my video. The video is not showing because it's using on beta at the minute. But there's other things you can add. You can change the color. You can add different scenes and do scene transitions. You can do all sorts of crazy things. And then you just hit start recording over on the right hand side. I realize this might be a little bit small and I can't really zoom the OBS window, sorry. But there's all these buttons over on the right hand side here. I hit start recording, off I go, I record. And typically when I'm recording, I'll record my videos in chunks. So, let's say I'm doing something about deploying Lambda functions. I might record the first bit, hit the deploy button, and then stop the recording, wait for the deployment to finish, and then start the recording again. So then what I end up with is all these chunks of video footage. And sometimes that can be 15, 16, 17 video clips, even depending on what the process is. And I used to really manually edit all these video clips together. And like I said, I am not a creative person at all. I am really quite bad at that kind of things. And actually, I got recommended another tool, which, if video content is something of interest to you, is one of the most game-changing tools I think I've ever used. And it's a tool called Descript. So what Descript allows you to do is load your video files into the software. And I can't see my other screen just for a minute. So you load all of your video files into the software. And what Descript does is it transcribes your video footage. And then you can actually edit your video by editing the script. So if I was to delete some of the words in here, Descript would automatically cut the video on my behalf and get rid of the words. I can also automatically remove any filler words, so any ums, ahs, ers, and I can also shorten word gaps. So if I've got a 2 or 3 second piece of white space of no talking, Descript can just remove all of that for you. And this is massively, like, the editing process used to take me between half an hour, 45 minutes, an hour sometimes. Descript, it's maybe a 10-minute process. Like, the barrier to entry with something like Descript is so incredibly low. It's really, really easy to get started producing video content. So they're the two tools I use, and that's my entire video production workflow. Think of the ideas beforehand. Typically, I have about 2 or 3 videos in the bank, if you will, just waiting to be published, to allow myself to think about things and, what do I want to produce yet? I do polls on Twitter and LinkedIn to work out what content I want to produce next and what people are interested in learning about. So that's video production, nice and easy. But of course, we're not all comfortable in front of a camera. Like, this isn't something that comes naturally to a lot of people. So what other options are there? Well, there's writing. There's plenty of websites out there that make it really easy to get started writing blogs. The simplest of tools that isn't even on here is LinkedIn. Can you just start posting things on LinkedIn? And I know some of you listening do regularly do that. I see many of you posting things on LinkedIn, and it's awesome that you're sharing your knowledge and doing that. So we've got dev.to, we've got Medium, we've got WordPress. There's a bunch of different tools that you can use for blogging. I actually run my blog from a GitHub repository. So if I go back to my GitHub repositories, I've got a private repository in here somewhere. If I just switch that over to private, I've got a private repository. The reason my blog's private here is because I have draft posts and things like that in my GitHub. I use a tool called Uchenna. I can put all these links in the Twitch chat once I'm done. And what Uchenna allows you to do is actually write content in Markdown. So if I go into some of my posts here, let's have a look at software design, importance of patterns. So I actually write my blog posts in, if I switch that over to there, I actually write my blog posts in Markdown in a GitHub repository. And I just commit changes to Git to publish a new blog post. So you see, this is all Markdown. So this is familiar to my technical developer-y brain. I'm just writing in Markdown. And then off the back of that, I use Netlify. So there's a tool, a hosting company called Netlify. And Netlify allows you to connect a website to a GitHub repository. And then from there, there's an automated build pipeline that runs in Netlify that every time I commit a change to the main branch of my GitHub repository, that triggers a CI/CD pipeline, which regenerates my blog and publishes it to look something like this. I've not written a single line of CSS. Remember, I'm terrible at creative stuff. So I've not written a single line of CSS, of HTML, of any of that. All I do is write content in Markdown, wherever that Markdown's just gone. I write code in Markdown, commit that to the main branch, and this is what comes out the other end of the pipe. Once I've got the blog here, then I repost that to things like Dev.to and Medium, just to kind of get a bit more reach for the content, really. So that's my writing workflow. And there's even easier ways to get started than that. Like I said, just publishing on Dev.to or Medium or LinkedIn. All these things make it really easy to get started teaching the things that you're learning. So my final note before I stop talking and we get on to our next awesome guest is think about a lot of what Neeraj saying was really important. You know, what is it that you want to be seen for or known for? Whether you are conscious or unconscious about that at the minute, there will be that brand being built around you. And think about what it actually means to be an architect and what you actually want your career to be in the future. You know, again, Neeraja talked about intentional careers. Maybe you want to sway more towards the top end of this elevator. The idea of like strategy, business strategy, and how technical strategy can go forward in the future. And then things like microservices architecture might become really interesting in cloud native architecture. Or maybe you'd prefer to be down in the weeds at the other end of the elevator where I like to sit. And then your content becomes around how can people solve technical problems with the content they produce. And the final thing I will say, Neeraja said this, Ashish also alluded towards this, is one thing I found producing content is that consistency is absolutely key. Consistency to keep yourself learning, you know, to tech moves so fast. So consistency with yourself to keep learning and teaching is a really good mechanism to help you do that, but also consistency for your audience. Consistency is key. Thanks for this. If there's any questions, pop them in the chat. I will grab all of the links I've just talked about and pop them in the Twitch chat as well. But yeah, thank you.
That was interesting, James. Yeah, I completely agree on what you said. Like, Consistency is the key, the last thing, and then sharing knowledge obviously helps you also learn a lot, because sometimes you do not know what you do not know unless somebody asks you something, right? So if somebody asks you a question, you start digging into, hey, how this happens, or what component we can use, what we can do to solve this complex logic. So yeah, that makes sense. So yeah, learn by teaching. So maybe you want to just publish a blog, maybe you want to just do something, maybe a YouTube video, and maybe keep it private if you don't want to make it public in case, or maybe anything. Means there are so many mediums, and as you said, it is so easy now. It's not like it's very complicated to create content. It takes time, that's all. But yeah, but the tools are there, and the list which James shared is really, really useful tools. So we'll put them into resources section, and
Yeah.
probably you would be also able to get help of that. And James, would you mind putting your YouTube and GitHub links
Yes.
here? So
Yeah.
we can like we can give it onto resource page, and everyone can then look at those resource page. So good, thank you for
Yeah,
that.
I think that what something you said there that I'll just pick up on, Ashish. That Richard Feynman tool for learning, that learn about a topic, pretend to teach it, and then go back and look at your gap. Like doing that privately is absolutely awesome. Like I do that with if I grab my notebook, just a second. Like all of this stuff here is me doing
Yeah,
exactly that. Think about a topic. Okay, how would I teach this topic? Okay, I don't know about how border gateway protocol works in networking. I'm not going to share this with everybody because my networking knowledge is terrible. But doing that, applying that process to and pretending to teach is really honest, such a valuable tool.
yeah. So we have a question, James. It's a little long-winded, but yeah, means it's an interesting question. So if you could read it. So I started some of my blogging months ago, not completed yet. I got burdened and overwhelmed by my goal of achieving too much in that
Yeah,
blog. Not completed. How to overcome it? Yeah, time is
it's
always limited, isn't it?
yeah, it's really interesting you said that actually, Pawan, because one of the reasons I didn't produce content for a while was, you know, I want to have so many followers or so many views or so many subscribers or anything like that. And I think, at least for me personally, setting that goal of I want to do this with my YouTube channel, I want to have this many subscribers or this many views. I tried to like completely reframe how I looked at my content. So as opposed to looking at my content as I want to get this many views, I want to get this many subscribers. Of course, I want to teach people, but using it as a tool for my own learning was a slight reframe that I put on it. So, like I was talking about, I want to learn about a topic more. I know if I need to teach that topic, I'll learn it really well. So, use my YouTube channel as a way to teach myself about stuff
Exactly.
that then has the ramifications of actually impacting other people in the long run. So maybe it's just a slight reframe plan. Like maybe it's okay, I'm going to use my blog to just document the things that I'm learning and help me work through my own thinking about a problem. Like some of the blog posts I've written, it's where I've just been writing, thinking about something, writing it down, thinking about something, writing it down, and then publishing it. It's just clarifying my own thoughts. And then maybe that does get 1 million subscribers. I hope it does for you, Pawan. I hope it does get, if it becomes a really popular blog. But maybe you impact one person. That's awesome too, because you've helped somebody else in the world. Like, and I don't know if that's what you mean by achieving too much, but I think the internet has made it so easy to see influencers who've got millions of
Exactly.
followers and millions of subscribers. When actually impact one person, impact two people. Amazing. You've done a fantastic job. So that's the kind of reframe I try to put on my content, at least.
Yeah. That should be the byproduct, I guess. So the
Mm,
intent should be knowledge sharing, and
mhm.
if you get something as a byproduct, yeah, well and good. Why not? We
Absolutely.
started Besa with the same intention. We
Yeah,
were
yeah.
hoping for only 20 people to join minimum. What all? It means even for our behavioral track, we had idea like even if we get 10 people or even one person selected in AWS, that would be success of our program. So yeah, that makes sense. Completely makes
Yeah.
sense. And I like to like have a quote from Ranga here. I like that. Chocos and apple divide when you share. Knowledge is the only stuff that actually
I love that.
multiplies when you share.
That's
Exactly.
amazing.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
an
But
amazing quote.
yeah, I would be happy to share my knowledge, but not my apple. So
Yeah,
that's
absolutely. That's an
all right.
amazing quote. Thank you for sharing that. That's awesome.
Nice. Thank you. All right. Abhijit is here too. Hey, Abhijit, want to say just hi? Means been long, have been seen you on the screen. And yeah, and now we have our next guest with us, who is Victory. Victory is a solution architect, and obviously, I would let her talk about it. But I want to check a pulse of audience. Are you okay to continue? Means I'm okay. So if we can keep moving forward without a break, I'm okay with that. But if you feel, a lot of you, that hey, we should take a short break and then come back, I'm okay with that too. So whatever you tell me in the chat, we would go with that. If you want to go forward, let's move forward. Yeah, that would be much better. Yeah, you are okay. Thank you. Pawan is okay too. Ranga is fine. Nivedita is fine. All right, good. Thank you. So thanks, James. And we will wait for the links, and I'll put it into resources section, and we will hope to see you into some other sessions too. Thank you. All right, Victory. I'm going to add you onto the chat now, onto the screen, and probably she is here now. Hello.
Hello,
You
you
may
may
have
have
unmuted.
unmuted.
Oh, yeah, I've unmuted myself.
How
Always
are
How are
you?
happens.
you?
I'm good, thank you. And yourself?
I'm
I'm
okay. I'm
okay.
okay.
I'm okay.
I'm getting
I'm
a lot
getting
of
a lot of
echo. Is
echo.
it
Is there
something we
something
could
we
do
could
for
do
that?
for that?
Oh, that's. I don't know why that's happening. Maybe if I try my headset, that might
Ah, yeah,
Ah,
make
that
yeah,
would
it
that
be.
would.
easier. A second. Um, is this better?
Yeah, if you need time, like to adjust, that's completely fine. You could go off camera, adjust yourself, come back, no issues on that.
Yeah, but I just want to know if it sounds
Now
better.
it's better. It's better. Now there is no
Okay,
echo. Everyone, can you confirm if there is a echo coming up, or you okay?
awesome.
Okay, now,
Yeah.
yeah, that's okay. Good. So thanks for that. And maybe like an interview question, Victory. I remember our initial mock interview which I had with you. Like, tell me about yourself. So let's start with that question. Tell me about who is Victory.
Wow. Yeah. Where do I begin? So obviously, my name is Victory Uchenna. I am a solutions architect working at AWS. I've been at AWS for the past 2 years and 3 months now, or 4 months. And yeah, there's so much more to what I do. I guess we're gonna like get into that later on the show, but I'm very happy to be here. I met Ashish from Restart, which is like a boot camp program that AWS runs, and I remember he supported me so much during my mock interviews, and so that's kind of how the connection started. I'm really grateful to be on here and kind of paying it forward. And I hope that this is valuable. I hope my story is valuable to people that are listening today.
It would be. It's such an inspiring story, Victory. And I was talking to BESUP members initially in the core group that, hey, we want to bring Victory to this. And then I shared story and they were say, yes, we want to hear about it. So yeah,
Oh,
good. Thank you.
that's amazing.
So I'll quickly get started with some basic stuff. How was your schooling or college? If you could brief us, were you very bright-minded or chaotic or how it was?
Yeah, I think is I've been talking about this recently with a lot of my friends that I went to school with, and my friends. So in my perspective, I thought that I wasn't so smart in school. I think I'm not very like I wasn't really a good judge of myself. Everyone around me thought I was smart, but I just never really thought that I was smart because I struggled a lot with reading because I didn't know I had dyslexia, but it was later on in my life, in my adult life, that I realized the reason why I struggled with like reading in front of people and maths was due to dyslexia. So to me, I just put it down as like I'm just really not that bright. But the people around me, my teachers, were, they could see the intelligence in me. I just didn't internalize it because I kind of was um, I just didn't really like what was going on in my brain. I just thought I don't really understand certain things. What's wrong with me? I'm clearly just not so bright. But I'm grateful for the people around me that saw that. And so yeah, I hope that answers your question. Was it, were you asking more around like what where in school I got to. Kind of, did I go to uni? Is that kind of the kind of questions
No,
you're
that's fine. Means yeah,
interested
we
to know?
we, we sometimes like some people like some of us may be having a very bright schooling. Some of people like us may have different way of schooling, and maybe like I was good till a point, and afterward I was the baddest student in my class. So yeah, those transition happen. So yeah,
Yeah.
let's go. Yeah.
And I think for me as well, so when I was in during so I came to the UK when I wasn't actually born here. So I came from Nigeria. I was born in Nigeria and I came here just before high school. Um and due to the fact that because due to that transition, I didn't I was placed in like kind of the lower sets. So I kind of had to work my way up to the higher sets, and I really struggled the first few years in high school, and I think I started to really like pick up. I started to really like become. I guess my grades got better in from later years. Like I guess like from like year 10 to college. So when I got to college, I got A stars, thinking, how the hell did I get A stars when I really struggled in the beginning of school? I was kind of shocked that I was getting kind of C's and D's, and all of a sudden now I'm getting A's. So I think I've always kind of been, I think I've always been quite bright, but not really. I think it took me a while to discover myself.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Yeah. And like how IT came into your way of working, or how you got fascinated to technology or computer? What was that moment?
Yeah, I think the thing is, I've always been quite curious about. I'm a very curious person, and I've always been quite curious about how things worked. And I think my first interaction with tech was during college. So I took IT in college, and as a topic, and I had a friend who was like he had this like trick with like coding and on the command line, and he would do some really cool things on the terminal, and I would just be like, that's so amazing, that's so fascinating, can you teach me about it? And so we'd spend ages together just learning about technology, learning about coding, learning about, I think my first language is Python. It was heavily influenced by him. um, and then, yeah, I think I just started learning about that and just kind of fell in love with it. And I think I remember the first time I kind of dabbled into code. I was when I went to a summer school after college. And I was actually supposed to be enrolling in in a psychology class. And the psychology class was filled up, so they put me in cloud computing, and then we had to build something in Python, and I really really enjoyed it. And the teacher was like, "You should probably go into this. You obviously seem like someone who enjoys coding, so I think you should try it." And I did. I started learning about who created Python programming, and I found out he worked at Google, and I found out so much things about him. I followed him on Twitter, and I just got myself really really immersed in it. And then I built my first calculator with Python. I put it on GitHub and told all my
Nice.
friends. I said, go and check this out. It's amazing. I built this on my own, and from there it just kind of went on and on. And I picked up other languages and just continued learning. I think my fascination for learning to code has never really stopped. Obviously, being a solutions architect, things have changed now because I'm no longer coding as much. But that is always going to be my first love, and I hope to get back to there, hopefully at some point.
Yeah, why not? And so once you passed college, how was your career? Like you directly went into a job, or you looked into a different stream? How that transition happened?
Funny enough, this is I think I've not really ever been fully honest about like how I transitioned into tech, because there's a lot of personal things that also kind of comes into it. But after college, I knew that I wanted to go into technology. I knew that in my head, the next step really was to do computer science in university. So I'd fallen in love already with tech. I was already building websites. I was doing freelance web design. I just knew that it was something I wanted to pursue. However, there was a barrier there was something that happened in my personal life, which meant that I couldn't go on to university, which really broke my heart. And I just felt that, okay, there's really nothing I can do now. Like, I feel like I'm missing out on being who I want to become. I had this vision of who I wanted to become in my head, and I'm no longer going to be able to do it because I'm not able to go into university and pursue my career. And so the only thing left to do was just to learn and just use YouTube and to use free resources online. And I'm really thankful for Free Code Camp because that at that point, Free Code Camp has just started making they had a YouTube, they started creating content, and I just used it. It was free and it was amazing. And I would just follow these people on Twitter and just follow them around and listen to everything they say. So I just started doing that and just hoping for an opportunity to get into tech. I knew that obviously having a degree might hinder me, but I just thought to myself, I'm gonna give it a go anyway and build my skills. If an employer sees me and deems me worthy to be employed as a developer or anything in technology, I'll be happy to take it on. And that's what I kept doing. And then I stumbled across Restart, which was incredible. And that's where I met you and met other people as well, other people that are still in my network. And Restart, basically, it's for 13 weeks. And it's a program that takes you from zero to hero on cloud computing. You get to learn about AWS, you get to learn about different AWS services, you get to learn about well architected framework, you get to learn about a lot of things and how to apply these things in the real world. And then after that, you are presented to employers that will take you on as an entry level cloud engineer or DevOps or anything of that sort. And I felt, to me, that was my first time kind of, I guess that was my first time I felt like I was recognized as a technology person, if that makes sense. That was the first kind of opener or initiator into like my tech career. So yeah, that's it really.
That's good. Rest is history, isn't it? Yeah, so I want to know a little bit more on Restart because you've been graduated from that. So how is the selection process? What we need to get into Restart, or who is eligible for Restart?
So Restart, it's usually for young people who are unemployed between the ages of, I think, 18 to 30. The requirements might have changed now, but you have to be someone who is doing something in technology, someone who has a clear passion for tech. So for myself, I already had like a GitHub repository with all of my coding resources, all of my trainings. You know, I used to use this app that I've forgotten about now, but it's like it's called, I think it's called HackerRank. Some of you might know it, but it just basically gives you challenges, coding challenges that you have to solve. Some of them are hard, some are easy, and it just allows you to build your knowledge on programming. And so I just use that to build my GitHub repository, my GitHub account. And so I was doing a lot of things, especially, and also at the same time, I was also building websites for local businesses in my area. So I was saying that to say that you need to have a strong desire, a strong passion, a visible passion for technology in order to be considered into this program. And so when you apply, there's a series of interviews and a series of kind of technical based questions to gauge your kind of understanding. And then once that's done, once you get into if you get into Restart, then starts the learning of, cloud computing. I think in the beginning you do get like an overview of what technology means, what is the internet, just kind of an overview to kind of make sure everybody's on the same page. And then you go along to learn about cloud computing and AWS. And then after that, after the course, you should be ready to do your cloud practitioner exam, AWS cloud practitioner exam, which most of us did. And then after that, you get employed. Some people, unfortunately, like myself, didn't. I had to go through another route to get my first employment, which was as a DevOps consultant with a QA. But most times you are placed with you're placed with what do they call it again? Employers, and then when they pick you up, they train you, and then you kind of like that kind of starts your career in technology.
Is it a full-time program?
Yes, it is. It's so it's you can't well that back then I'm not sure about now. You It's immersive. It's 13 weeks of every single day. You're there every day, Monday to Friday. So it is full time. But I'm not. I think hopefully I think there might be like a option for part time. If there is, I think that would be great because a lot of people I know would
Yeah,
love to
exactly.
do that whilst also working and stuff. But yeah, it is full time.
And to confirm, it is a free program, right? You do not pay anything to go in that.
Yeah, it's a totally free program. And I think one other thing I wanted to mention as well is the great thing about Restart is that you're not just learning, you get the opportunity to meet with people who are already in the field, which is where I met
Exactly.
you, right? And I think I had never had like a training like that because typically for me anyway, I just learn online. But being there in the office and like just seeing real world, like seeing people doing things you want to do really motivated me and motivated all of us. You get to hear from people, from principal solutions architects that tell you about their journey into tech, tell you about their day to day as a solutions architect. It's just really inspiring. So that's one of the great things, the great benefits of doing a program like this because you are face to face with people that are already doing things you want to do and you get to learn from them and ask them questions and yeah, it's just amazing.
Nice. Now, I could see there was a conscious effort from you to build network. Like you reached out to, did mock interview for let's say 10 people, right? But only you reached out to me when it was a need. So what was the drive in you to build your network, or how did you build your network?
I think the reason why there was such a drive for me to reach out to you was because I already felt like I had a disadvantage because I didn't. Most people in my cohort had already kind of had a degree, and back then there was still maybe there was a bit of a stigma around people that hadn't that didn't have a higher education, and so I felt like I didn't have an edge, and so I felt like I had to people that had made an impact in my life, I wanted to keep them close. So I remember after meeting you, I followed you straight away on LinkedIn and was waiting for the right opportunity to reach out to you. So it wasn't just yourself that I reached out to.
Yeah, I agree.
I reached out to so many people because I felt that this could be my only way to actually
Hmm.
get my foot in the door. And thankfully that's what happened.
It worked,
That's
isn't
what
it? Yeah.
so I think I guess there isn't really a strategy to building network. I think for me anyway, for me there wasn't really a strategy for building a network. What I will say is those people that make an impact in your life, just try to keep in touch with them. There are, there's so much you can learn from people. There's so much you can learn from their experiences, and just having them around to just watch what they're doing and to follow their steps. It's just amazing because you can't even imagine how much you will grow. Like I remember sometimes I'll be on LinkedIn and I'll see a post that you've made about a new AWS service. I would straight away go and check it out because I believe in your expertise and I trusted that whatever you're posting, or whatever it is that you're doing, would be of use to me. So I guess what I would say is reach out to people on LinkedIn. Always, whoever you get to speak to face to face, ask them for their LinkedIn, follow them, and just try to keep in touch. Make sure that you're in touch with them and show them that you're willing to learn from them. People are always happy to help. So you know.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Makes sense. Makes sense. So I want to talk a little bit on the your career journey. So you completed Restart. What happened afterwards?
So I completed Restart. And unfortunately, again, I mentioned during just after college why I couldn't go to university because due to some personal issues.
I want to
So,
clarify one thing here. For some
yeah.
people, like in India, college and universities are considered same. So I want to
Oh,
clarify. College here in UK is like in India we call it like a high school, 11 to 12th classes, and then university is considered what we call graduates in India. So yeah, that's what. So university and college seem similar in India, but they are different here in
okay.
UK.
Right. Yeah. Thanks for clarifying that. I think that's the same. It's kind of similar with the US as well, because when you say college, they think it's university, but it's not.
Yeah.
But yeah. So for me, when I couldn't go, like I said, college after college couldn't go on to do a degree in university. Um, and so after I did Restart, that I had, the same personal issue came up again, which was really a shame because I could tell that the organizers from Restart really wanted to push me on to an employer. I had already done a few interviews with an employer, but unfortunately I couldn't go on to work. Um, and so again, I went right back to having to rely on my own self learning, having to rely on just building my skills, learning to code, building websites, just making sure that I am around people that are technologists and just learning from them. Um, Thankfully, after a year after that, the issue was sorted, which meant that I could go into employment, and I got my first job as a cloud and DevOps consultant, and right after that, I remember, I think a year into that, I got an email, a LinkedIn message from a recruiter from AWS saying that if I would consider to work as a solutions architect. And if I'm completely honest, I thought it was a hoax. I didn't think it was real. I had to get my friends to check it out and say, can you please search this lady's name and make sure she's not like a bot, like make
Yeah. Yeah.
sure she's a real person, because I couldn't believe that I had done Restart. Things just didn't work out for me. I had, it just felt like it wasn't happening. It wasn't real. And mind you, I said to myself that I wanted to be a solutions architect in the next 10 years because I thought it was just so unattainable. But I met that within a few years in my career. So you can imagine
Wow.
it just felt like it was not happening. So I did my interview, did my loops. Oh, my loop was, yeah, I did one loop actually, not two, but
Can
I
you
did an
elaborate
initial
it, like
interview
how
first.
the first interview was? You were given some assignment, I guess, right? What was the
Yes,
process?
so I was given an
So
assignment.
first was technical interview, you cleared
Yeah.
it, and then was assignment.
No, first was just like an interview just to get to learn about me a little bit.
Okay.
Um, and I think it was with the recruiter and another solutions architect. And that went well and I passed that. And then I got a technical assignment, which I struggled with a little bit. And that's when I reached out to you. I knew what was, I think the assignment was it was an S3 bucket. Um, and it was no, I've forgotten now, but it was like there was a few assignments. One of them was a nursery bucket that was not public, so you had to figure out why you're not able to see the static site and figure out like how to solve that problem. And there was
Hmm.
also like a design, like a three-tier design that you were asked to kind of make serverless, and you're also asked a few other questions which, some of them I did easily, and some of them requires, like, I just needed like a technical person to help me understand what the question was. And that was when I reached out to you, and you were of great help to me.
Oh, come on. Means you were such a bright person. Means I was sure you would crack that interview. So yeah, that was good. But yeah, so
Yeah.
so that interview was like then you did a presentation of that solution to a panel. Is it like that?
Yeah, so I did a presentation to actually, it was a phone screen, an hour phone screen with a principal essay. And I think it went so well. It ended up just being a conversation. And so I was thinking, is it supposed to go this way? Because when you search on Google about like AWS phone screen, it's a bit daunting, like the way people talk about it, how vigorous and how like hard it can be. So I was expecting it to really be really tricky and hard to crack and just very difficult. But it was like a conversation. He asked questions about how I solved the issue. He asked some other technical questions such as like like um just typical technical questions. Like if you were to search a website, a domain, what happens? Just talk about like what actually happens behind the screen, things like that. So and we just had a discussion, and I asked him one question which I don't remember. I think it was about security. It was a question around what is um I guess what is the middle ground between operability and security? Because obviously you want to secure things, but you can't secure it too much where it's not usable. And he remembered that, and I think that kind of he said no one's asked me that question, and I'm really taken aback, and I really like the question you've asked. And then it ended up being a conversation about security and all that stuff. And at the end, I thought I probably might have. I think I've gotten through.
You
I
could
think,
sense it.
yeah, I had a sense that okay, I think I'm gonna go through. And I got an email saying, yeah, you've gone through to your loop. And I thought, wow, this is all happening too fast. And I had to ask my friends again to like, please make sure this is real life and I'm not dreaming.
You need a pinch, isn't it? Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
coveted thing. Loop interviews are, in a way, people consider them nasty. I don't call it that way. They are intriguing. They give you into the depth. They explore all the aspect of your personality, technical knowledge, behavioral skills. So that is interesting.
Hmm.
Was it a job offer just after that, or was there a struggle between?
So, just after my phone screen, I did the loop, and the loop was had nothing to do with the um um with these assessment that they gave to me. It was just about understanding if I was a good fit, going through the leadership principles, explaining kind of. I'm sure most of you who might be watching this might know about the leadership principle, but essentially there are I think 16 now, 16 leadership principles,
Hmm.
and you are questioned based on all of these principles, and you're supposed to have examples to prove that you are able to perform based on that leadership principle,
Demonstrated, yeah.
yeah, and demonstrate it, right? And yeah, as much as people might say that it's yeah, nasty, like you said, but I think it's also an opportunity for you to even learn about like yourself. I had to sit down to really think about my career and what I had done so far and how that fits into leadership principle. And I said to myself, even if I don't get through this loop, I've really learned about myself. I've really learned so much about like kind of how I've grown and the things that I'm doing, because sometimes we're so like busy working, we don't step back and kind of do an overview of our careers and our overview of like our tech journey. So I really actually enjoyed it. It obviously was like 5 hours long or 4 hours long, sorry, but it was definitely worth it because I got through, which was yeah, again, yeah, I couldn't believe it.
Nice. And how was the onboarding? How you learned? Because obviously solution architect are expected to know a lot of things. Were you at par when you joined, or you had to struggle? The imposter syndrome, we call it.
Mm. One thing about AWS is that you have to be so before you are employed onto AWS, you have to be performing at a very you have to be I've forgotten the percentage, but I think you have to be performing at a very very high standard. You have to be better than people that are already
50%
performing
or
in that
yeah,
50%, I think,
exactly.
yeah, people in your level. So if you do get through, you need to be like you should be proud of yourself. You shouldn't feel because I had this feeling of okay, I'm here now, and I just feel like I don't know as much as people that are here, and I'm probably gonna struggle. And the thing is, you you might struggle because of, what's going on in your head, because you're thinking, I'm not good enough. Um, but the thing about this tech career and being at AWS is that experience really plays a huge role. For someone who's starting out new, as a like someone who's just starting out in their career, there's so much you need to learn. Like, you might know the practical or the technical bit, you might have the skills, but how to speak to customers, how to interact with them, how to actually problem solve efficiently, how to ask the right questions. These are things that you pick up through experience. And there is no compression algorithm for experience. I think it's a quote from Andy Jassy, and I think that is so true. So as much as you might have imposter syndrome, I think it's important to remember and to remind yourself that it's really all an experience. Allow yourself to grow, give yourself the time to grow, and you will see that it will pay off. You'll look back, um, from where you started, and be proud of yourself and realize that you should have probably not been as hard on yourself as you were. So yeah, I guess to kind of round that off with, I did have some imposter syndrome. I had great people in my team who really helped me to realize that everybody has this, and that, you should feel the fear and do it anyway. So you might have a call with a customer, maybe like with the chief architect, and you have to explain a complex issue to them, and you might feel that they might suss you out, and they might and that you might not be able to perform as well. Just do it anyway. Just do it anyway. You're there to support them. You're there to help your customer. Just focus on that rather than focusing on the little blunders you might make here and there. Because at the end of the day, you're providing value, and that's all that matters.
Makes sense. Completely makes sense. Now I have a question, like little on tangent. Any career setbacks? Like what happened and how did you overcome it? Like we always see that, hey, I was trying that, didn't work out, or maybe I was looking for joining a specific team or a promotion and didn't work out. How any stories like that?
Wow. I think, honestly, I think everybody has career setbacks. There's so many that I could talk about. But I think for me, initially, like I said, I felt like I had a lot of career setbacks even before I joined AWS, because, I just had a lot of things that hindered me into either getting a job or going into university. So already I just felt defeated and felt like, like I just felt like I just couldn't wait to actually get my big break and start working and start actually, like, growing my career. And but I think the most recent setback for me um would be, I'm trying to think of a good one. um I think for me it would be my during my promotion. So I just recently got promoted, um but I struggled a little bit because I felt like, again, it's the whole imposter syndrome thing, where for me to be able to be promoted, I needed to do a lot of thought leadership. So like writing blogs or speaking and public speaking and talking about kind of giving customer technical advice, and or like just talking about a technical, like a service or something like that. But one of my biggest issues is talking in front of people. I had this I just it's like it was a big challenge for me, and just going out there and having my work critiqued, or standing in front of people and telling them about a new service, or telling them how to design their architectures. It was just so too daunting for me. But it's a vital thing that I need in order for me to actually get promoted. So I think I had like a couple months before I had like a couple months before I could apply for my promotion, and I just had to get over it. Like I just, it was a thing where it's like, it literally is kind of do or die now. I can't, I have to step out of my comfort zone and go out there and just find a thought leadership to do. So I thought to myself, okay, the opportunity to speak about data mesh came up, and data mesh is something that I've been really, really interested in um, for a while now. So I said to myself, okay, I'm just gonna go. I'm gonna talk about it, and I did. And the first one was tough, but since then I've done so many more public speaking and blog writing that it just feels like second nature to me now. But yeah, that was something that almost took me, like it was something that almost like didn't allow me to do my promotion, but thankfully I was able to like confront that and you know and do it, and now thankfully I got promoted, and yeah, I'm really really happy with
Nice,
that
good.
sort.
Congrats on your promotion. And yeah, people who do not know about promotions in Amazon, like it is little different than the real world. In some companies, based on your tenure, you automatically get promoted or you go from one level to another. AWS is not like that. You have to be very proactive and very vigilant about your promotion. Like you have to work towards your promotion. It's not like somebody would promote you directly. You have to work towards your promotion. So yeah, I agree on that. So yeah, if you have those blog posts, if it is in public domain or any other work, so feel free to share. I'll put them into resource section so others can also get benefited from it. So yeah, that makes
I
sense.
definitely will.
Now, I have like a advice now. I'm moving into the like some a later phase of the interview. So if anyone is starting their cloud journey, what would be your advice? Like some what you should be doing,
Yeah.
how to get started?
Um, I would say what I would say really is that you have to, I think there's a few things that you need to have, and that is the desire to learn. You should be a self learner. You should be motivated to want to learn. Um, that's something that is a core of being on this cloud journey. Because the thing about the cloud is that it's still evolving. You know, there's many more things that you don't know now that is gonna come in the future. For example, like during reInvent, new services were launched, and as a someone who is in the cloud, who is a solutions architect, my job is to learn that for my customers. So you really, really have to have the desire to learn and to problem solve. I think that's where it starts first. Once you're able to get that secure, then you should start putting yourself out there, start building things, there's so many blogs out there teaching you how to build event-driven architectures, how to build modern data lakes or modern data pipelines and things like that. Start learning, start building, start putting it out there for people to see. Just show your interest to people, show your interest to employers via your LinkedIn or GitHub repository or anywhere, so that when people see your profile, they know that this person isn't just someone who just says they like to problem solve. This is somebody who actually can be of value to my organization and someone who I would love to to employ. So if you're starting your journey, definitely I think you should find avenues where you can learn. There's so many resources online. There is Free Code Camp that I used in the beginning, but now there is A Cloud Guru. There is so many. There's Udemy, which I still use till today. Learn about the fundamentals of the cloud, do some certs, and then get hands on. That is so important. You can do all the certs you want, but if you don't have any hands on experience, then you're really not going to be able to be as beneficial to customers or to people. So get hands on, share what you're doing on LinkedIn, and then grow your network. Some of you are already kind of doing a great job by joining lives like this, joining platforms like this, where you get to meet amazing people like James and Ashish and others that have come in previous sessions. Follow them on LinkedIn. Check on them. Make sure that follow on what they're sharing. If they share a new service, try it, learn about it, post something. And I think just, yeah, once you're able to get yourself out there, it just happens naturally. It's like magic. Try it and you see that, um, people are going to just be interested to know what you have to say. People are going to be
Yeah.
interested to learn about your own perspective on something. I think another thing I would say as well is go to hackathons. I really, in the beginning of my career, I relied on a lot of hackathons in London. You get to, like, you're in an environment where nobody knows about what the problem, what the situation is, or
Yeah.
what the problem is, and you're having to just learn. You're having to just build on the go. It's an amazing experience when you're able to solve an issue with other developers and other builders, and it's something that's also vital in your day job, because your job as a cloud, someone in the cloud space, is to solve problems. So I think if you're able to do all of that, I think, yeah, the sky really is your limit.
Yeah, so hackathons are really, really nice interaction. People who do not know, search for it. These hackathons happen in different cities and different places online too. So that is a good way to connect with like-minded people, actually work on solving some real-world problem and learn from it, and probably free. So that is much, much better option. Now I'm picking up a question from James here. Do you have any strategies for keeping learning? It's important stuff for SA, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. So, we at AWS, we actually allocate time to learn, even with, aside from your day job, you're supposed to section out time where you're not, there's no disturbance from anybody. You're just focusing on learning something new, and I really, really like, that's one of the things that I love so much about working here. Um, but in terms of strategy, I would say to find a like the most efficient way that you learn, your best way of learning. For me, best way I learn is just by, I actually really enjoy watching videos. So I just watch the videos, and I watch it in like 2x speed, and then that gives me enough time to watch and quickly like try learn it on the console. So find a good strategy that works. Some people, it's just like, there some people, like I know someone who actually prefers to read, or to write down what they're learning, because it kind of like, they can picture it, they can
Stays in,
picture,
yeah.
yeah, it stays in their mind. So find a way to learn, find a good strategy that you think works for you, and then pick up that, let's say it's a new service, pick up that new service, read about the FAQs, read about just read about like kind of how it's built, how it's designed, and then learn it on the console. Like, try and build something on it and post it on GitHub or post it somewhere. And you start to, as you're learning the interest, like you start to build more of an interest to it, and you just keep getting drawn to it. And something that James said as well was to try and teach people. This is something that I actually struggled with before, because I never found the opportunity. For me, I never found the opportunity to teach, and I also just, again, it's the idea of talking to people about something. It's just too daunting. Was just too daunting for me. But I realized that, you know, I can talk to people in my house, even if they're not interested. I can talk to my brother, I can talk to my mum, and just say, "Do you know about this new service, Data Zone? It's amazing because it does this and that and this." Just talking about it. And even if it allows you to it allows you to make mistakes, but
Yeah.
when eventually you do have to go out there to talk to customers about it, you have learned enough to be confident and to share this new knowledge of your customers, or to other people. So I would say find a strategy that works for you and learn things, build it, and speak to people, teach people about these new things that you've learned.
Nice. Yeah, I agree on that. So yeah, teach someone, and yeah, maybe then I also prefer like varied audience in the sense, like if I'm explaining it to a kid, then obviously it would be different, and that would also give me a perspective like, hey, how I could explain it in an easier way rather than all technical jargons on that. So yeah, makes sense. Completely makes sense. So thank you, and I would take a last question here, which is about any top three tips you could give to anyone for life or in general or technology. It doesn't have to be solution architecting, but how you could succeed in anything you want.
Wow. Okay, I think the first thing I would say is to be really, really, like, really, really sure of what you want to be in your head. Like, be as visual as possible. Like, that person you want to be, and that place you want to get to, you need to be able to like picture it so well. It needs to be clear as day. Because there are going to be days where you might be demotivated. There are going to be days where you don't feel like doing anything, but that picture is always going to be there.
Hmm.
And you might think you've forgotten about it. You've not forgotten about it. It's there, and it's going to lead you and guide you to where you need to be. When I said that I wanted to be a solutions architect, I gave myself 10 years. I I didn't know how I achieved it, but it was later on that I thought about it and I realized that I had this picture of being like Ashish or the other essays that I had seen at AWS and thought I want to be like these people. Like I had the picture in my head walking into my job as a solutions architect talking to customers, and I felt like I thought I had forgotten it, but I think now that in hindsight I can see that 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 picture actually guided me into becoming who I have become. So just get really, really good at having that picture in your head of who you're supposed to be or who you want to be and let it guide you. Take steps that allows you to that aligns you to that goal. And I think you should be like if you're able to do that, the sky is the limit. And the second one I would say is to just love to learn, like allow yourself to learn, allow your brain to learn. Um, you might think, oh, I'm struggling with this. I've not quite grasped this new concept. Give it a break and come back and read it again. Keep doing it
Hmm.
over and over until you're able to understand it. Speak to people about it. Ask a technical person and say, "There's this new thing I've learned about data mesh and democratization, and I don't really quite understand it. What is your take on it?" And get them to explain it from their perspective. That again adds to your knowledge and helps you to understand that thing. So just get really, really good at learning, get really, really good at trying to learn and trying to problem solve. I think it helps in every part of life. So yeah, that's another tip I'll give. And then the third and final tip would be, it'll be to just give yourself grace. Um, you might, I think some of us has have an idea where we want to be in the next year, sometimes in the next couple years or in the next year, and it doesn't work out. Just give yourself grace to get there. Don't be in a rush. Just do all the things. Take all the steps you're supposed to take. Read the books. Do the certs. Speak to people. Grow your network. And if you're doing all these things right, you will get there. So yeah, that's it from me. That's all the tips I have, and I hope it's been helpful for some
Exactly. Yeah,
people.
it's really, really nice. Yeah, I like that idea of having a picture in mind and pursuing it. That was
Mm-hmm.
interesting. Yeah, so some of us are visual learners, so yeah, that could be a one interesting thought. So yeah, good food for thought, I would say, Victory. Thank you so much.
No
Yeah, means
worries.
it was so interesting to hear about it. And like last question from my side. What is your day job? What you do as I say? Sometimes it becomes like, hey, these are mysterious people. I don't know what they do. So a little bit on that, like what you do as a solution architect right now on day-to-day basis.
Yeah, so as a solutions architect, my job really is to be a trusted advisor for my customers. My job is to help them solve issues, help them build well architected architectures, help them to navigate their cloud journey in a cost optimized way, in a well architected way. I'm supposed to be whenever I introduce myself to my customers, there's actually someone from my one of my colleagues told me this and I use it now and I say to my customers, I am like the CTO for you from the AWS perspective.
Wow,
So
that's nice.
if you have any issues or any troubles, any problems with the architecture or with anything you're learning or everything you're trying to build in your organization, you should come to me. I will be I have your best interest at heart. So um I guess when it comes to day to day, um, I have for example, on a Tuesday I have office hours with one of my customers, which is just where I come and share new services on AWS or to bring up a topic that they talked about a month ago and say, how is that going? How can I support you? Or maybe
Hmm.
they might have new they might have they might have a need to learn to do machine learning, and I could say to them, okay, why don't we do an immersion day? Immersion day is like a training, but we could say, why
Hmm.
don't we do an immersion day for your developers, or sorry, for your staff, your data science team, on how to use SageMaker? You know, And then they also use that opportunity to share their own issues that I could take away and get back to them on. So that's kind of my job. My job is really just to be there for my customers and make sure that they're running things well on AWS and that they feel supported, and yeah, and that's pretty much that. There's various other things we do, such as blog writing, thought leadership, um, and so on and so forth. But our main job is to be the CTO, of like from the cloud perspective for our customers.
Makes sense. So interesting job, isn't it? Yeah, means the point I wanted to talk about that hey, we are not like doing a rocket scientist thing. It is a common thing. Only thing is like the focus is on a customer's interest and to
Mm-hmm.
help them in the best possible way. And so probably like a lot of people would be able to relate to like how things are and how things work. So yeah, really interesting to know about you and your journey. And thanks for your time. I think it was a very fruitful information for a lot of us, and we hope to have this kind of conversation maybe again into future. So thanks for that. And if you have any links or any resources you think could help us help our learners or any future solution architect, so please let us know and we can put it on a resource page so that everyone would get benefited from it.
I will do. I will post all the resources I have.
Nice, thank you. So thanks everyone. Thank you for joining. Thanks to Victory on behalf of you, all of you, and thanks James also. It was an interesting session on it. And Abhijit, I'm not sure if you are still here. Means he
I'm
was
good. I'm good.
on. Yeah, here. Good, thank you. So Abhijit been supporting us from long time, and yeah, he is there. We wanted to have a session from Abhijit also, so probably we'll have to hear from an engagement management perspective also in next session. So we will figure out those things. But yeah, thanks everyone, and let us know how you liked it. Anything which we could do differently, anything we could invite more people or talk about any specific stuff. Let us know, and have a good weekend, everyone. Victory, thanks you. Thanks, James. Thanks, Abhijit. And
Thank
we'll see
you.
you in some other time. Thank you. Bye.
Bye all.